Hi again. Welcome to Good Grieving, the podcast where we talk about uncomfortable situations and topics surrounding grief and loss. My name is Sterling,
I'm Kathy.
and we'll get right into it here. I think.
Yes.
Tonight. It's been a while since we've done one of these,
Yeah.
hasn't it?
Our last one was in February, I
think
believe.
so. Yeah.
My gosh, and we are right in the middle of April, and
Yeah, just before Easter.
we don't have a set schedule for this.
No.
We're both very important and busy people.
Very.
And it's like just connecting. No, we do have things in our life, and it's just lining up. So this topic is, we thought we'd talk about, well, is it dating? Is it like getting into a relationship after loss?
After a loss, yeah. And it's funny because this is one of those things that I think a lot of people have misconceptions about, that there's a certain time frame that they should be adhering to. It's been this long,
or they can
it's
never.
time for me to go and do this, or exactly as you say, that's just off for me, and it's no good. I can't pursue anything like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons for that, and I can share a little bit about my experience with this. And really, I don't have a lot of experience, but much like you just said, like sometimes people think I need to get out there. I need to find someone. I'm so lonely. And then when you actually look at it, are we lonely for another person, or are we just lonely for the person that has died? Yeah. And we're talking really to people who have been either married, a common law, a long-time partner, just someone you've been in a long-term romantic relationship, and when that ends, how do you step into the world of actually loving again? And love doesn't have to be a romantic kind of love, but absolutely. I think we might be touching on romance tonight. So my experience has been one of right after John died. It was a year, actually just after a year after he died, and I was talking to a young woman, and she was telling me a story about her mother had died, and her father had since gotten into a new relationship and seemed very happy, and she was so happy for him, and the pressure was off her to worry about and take care of her father. Right. And I went, oh, maybe I should get into a relationship so my kids don't worry about me. Right. Not the best idea. Right. And I did dip my toe in. And it was not a great experience for me. And I wasn't ready. And this past year, I thought, I think I just want companionship. I don't want a romantic relationship. Right. Well, that's not generally on the other side. They want a romantic relationship. And anyway, so I don't know what the future holds for me, but it has been it was very challenging, and we can get into kind of what my experience was when Sterling gets into some facts.
So, as we typically do with this podcast, Kathy has a lot of rich lived experience that and a lot of training that informs a lot of the work that she does. I tend to dig more into the research and look into see what does the literature have to say about this, what kind of studies have been done. And so when I was digging into some of this, I found a couple of interesting things. The first one came from the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships, an article from 2012, and they brought up a really interesting term, and I wanted to start with that if I could.
Could we?
And it is, they refer to something called commitment contradiction, which I thought was fascinating because the idea there is that there remains an ongoing commitment to the partner who is no longer with us.
100%?
100%. There's an ongoing commitment. There's a feeling of, there's often feelings of betrayal or guilt associated with moving into a new direction, looking for a new partner, a new romantic interaction of any kind. And then when there is a new partner that comes along, regardless of the circumstances or anything else, there's very often that contradiction of commitment where there's an existing commitment to a person who's no longer with us, but there is now a new commitment forming to a new partner. And how do they resolve that? The article I was reading actually had to do with longtime girlfriends of service members from the Israeli army who had died.
Oh, okay.
And so it was from elsewhere outside of Canada. I can't remember at the moment where the research was conducted, but that was the context. So just to sort of establish that these were typically, not, I shouldn't say unexpected, but they were untimely passing of this partner. So there's this idea that the commitment is going to stick around. The commitment to this partner who's been lost is going to stick around, and that's totally normal. It's a completely expected situation. But then when the time comes for them to, as you said, maybe it's time for me to dip my toe in. Maybe it's time for me to start looking at this. As soon as there's a new connection that's found, there can be this really difficult conflict that comes up.
Oh.
And being prepared for that to be the case, I think, is a really important takeaway from that.
Yeah.
For anybody who's interested in looking, going, if my partner has passed, it's been months or years or decades, and I think maybe now it's time for me to start, I feel like I want to have some sort of relationship.
The kids are grown, right. That kind of thing, yeah.
Right. Those kinds of things can persist for a really, really long time. And it's very individual. That's the other thing that a lot of the research points to, is that as with any aspects of grieving and coping with loss, there's a huge amount of individual variation from person to person. So again, there's no real timeline on this, but if you do find yourself feeling drawn towards looking for a new relationship, a new partner, a new whatever it is, be prepared for the fact that there may be some existing commitment that is subconscious and it's in the back of your mind. You're not aware of it, but as soon as that new situation presents itself, there could be some pretty strong feelings of conflict there.
And that I can speak to that from a personal perspective. When I online dating, it is like, you think now, I mean, I don't even think I know how to date. Number one, it's been over, 46 years now. Yeah. I was in a relationship with John for 44. So I met this person online, very nice man, really, really nice man. He was a widower, and same age, and we met, we actually went for dinner. We talked first on the phone. We did, the texting, getting to know someone. Anyway, dinner was really nice. And what was really interesting is in my head, I didn't dress up more than I would. It wasn't like a date in my mind. It was, I was going to meet someone, and I didn't feel guilty at that point.
Right.
Sat down, and it was a wonderful evening. Great conversation. I laughed a lot. We had a lot of things in common. And then it progressed. We FaceTimed, we met again, and I realized he made me dinner.
Right.
Lovely. And I sat there, and the whole time I was like, I can't do this. All I was thinking about was John. And he actually said to me, John's everywhere in your house. And he is. He's everywhere. There's pictures of him everywhere. I have tattoos. I just said, I can't do this. Yeah. And he was very gracious. And he said, I understand. He said, I tried this myself too early. And he said, I think this is too early for you. Yeah. And I just was devastated. You putting it in that context, it's that conflicting, those emotions of, you've got this relationship that is, in your heart, is never going to end.
Right.
And then you're looking at starting a new relationship. So I was very blessed in the fact that I got to meet a really nice man. Right. And he was very understanding. It wasn't weird. I was sad, actually, when because it ended. It was like, he didn't want friendship. He was looking for his next forever. Right. And I'm like, I'm not looking for my next forever. Right. So it was really painful, but you just clarified kind of that point where I was so conflicted and I wasn't ready. And I have met widows who have stepped into the world of dating 5, 10, 3 years, whatever. Yeah. And it has been a wonderful experience. They've said to me, it's completely different. It's a different kind of relationship. I'm different in the relationship. It's very unique, and the two are separate. I keep the love that I have for my partner who has died, and now I'm stepping into this new relationship, and I'm like, I think it's quite healthy. Like, I was like, oh wow, I'm not there, but I celebrate the people who are, because life is, it's really important to be able to step into more, and if that's another relationship.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents on my experience.
Absolutely. I'm glad you said that too, because one of the things that I found when it comes to the new relationship and the conflict that can arise with the commitment that exists to the partner that's gone. One of the things that comes up pretty consistently, and this comes from a blog / I want to say sort of social networking sort of site.
Yeah, you're saying
surrounding grief. It's called Grief in Common. It was founded by Karen Arnold, and it's a really interesting space because the idea is that it's there's interesting articles and really helpful information, but it's also a place for people that are grieving to express a bit about themselves and find other people that have similar experiences and to find companionship and friendship, and especially to just be able to share and have an open space for somebody who gets it, which is one of the things that we've talked about in the past, that it's kind of difficult to parse what it means and to unpack it with somebody who hasn't lived through it.
Yeah, and finding community is so vitally
hugely important. And that's one of the things that they talked about on that, on one of the articles I read on that site, was talking about the new relationship, chapter, experience, whatever it is, really, really central to making sure that you're comfortable with it and to helping to sort of unwind some of that conflict, is to recognize that this is not a replacement of the previous partner. It's a new chapter. It's a new experience, that they are no longer around. And as much as our heart breaks to have this person missing, or to have this person gone from our lives and coping with that loss, life does continue to move on. Time continues to pass. And eventually there comes a point where a lot of people realize, I think I'm ready to find not a partner to replace the partner that I lost.
That's such a key word.
But to find a new experience, to grow into a new part of my own life, to move into this new chapter. And that sort of conscious awareness of the fact that this isn't going back to replace anything that was here. It's not trying to, paper over any of the memories. It's not trying to replace anything. It's just a new experience that you're allowed to have. That you are, if you're interested in it and you feel that that's something that's drawing you in, it's okay. And keeping that mentality of, this is not replacing, this is moving into a new space.
Key. Yeah, that's so key.
Yeah.
Because I don't think any of us ever want to replace. They aren't. You can't replace.
No.
Them. It's like in a lot of what I do and some of the teachings, it's like we've been taught from a young age. It's like replace the loss. So you think of like a pet, and we talked about that in our very first episode.
That's right.
But it's like one of the first things that parents often do is if a pet dies and their children are distressed, they're like, don't worry, don't feel bad, we're going to get you another dog. Not allowing the child to actually feel the sadness, feel the heaviness, feel the grief. They get them another animal, and they're not ready for the relationship. They never can fully connect. There's always something missing. And I think, it's not like we're getting another pet, but when you try to replace something or someone, it's you can't.
Right.
So if you go into it, just like you said, this is a new relationship. This is a new experience. Someone completely different. And even I think your feelings would be like, there's just a difference. You're starting anew. And in that, it's probably really frightening. Like
absolutely.
I wonder if when you get into a relationship after you've lost someone, and this could be through divorce, this could be estrangement, it could be like it doesn't have to be death, but you start a relationship, and then that relationship, like you invest, like you are like, okay, I'm gonna open my heart, and then it ends. Like you break up.
Yeah, and that kind of,
and that's what you're worried. Like I think that it's like I don't know, and I've said this, I don't know if my heart could take another devastating loss.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And it's like maybe that's something that holds us back.
Yeah. Absolutely. And interesting you mentioned that too, because one of the things that came up a bit too in some of the research I was looking at was the concept of adult attachment. And attachment to a person, the attachment in a relationship between adults is it's complex and it's very individual, again, just like so many of these things are. But it takes time and it depends very much on the other person. The commitment and the attachment that a person would have to a partner of 44 years is going to be radically different from the attachment that they form with a person in 6 months or a year.
Yeah.
Even if it's been a number of years since the old partner has been gone and there's a new relationship that's been, growing comfortably and gently, it still takes that time. And the relationship, the attachment that you have, the trust, the feeling of safety, all those things take time to develop.
Trust is huge.
And I think one of the things, this is something I've interpreted from some of the literature. So this is my own sort of my own words. Sterling. But I think one of the biggest things that is important to keep in mind, if this is something that you're looking into this new direction and feeling, am I ready, am I not, is to manage expectations. Because if a person's had a relationship for 44 years, and they go out and try and find a new relationship, it's not going to feel like that for another 44 years, right? Like you can expect this to be something that takes time to develop and to feel familiar in the terms of the safety and the trust that exists. Yeah. And rushing that to try to get to it is going to be counterproductive. It's one of those things you can't rush. You can't force trust and belief in somebody and feelings of safety. Those are things that have to be demonstrated. So when moving into a new relationship, remembering that this is new and not the old, part and parcel with that is the idea that this is new, and that means I have to manage my expectations of what it's going to feel like as it progresses.
Good. That is powerful. And I think that, like each relationship is unique. And I love how you said, like, after being in a relationship with a man for 44 years, the level of trust, and I've said this many times, I'm like, I don't know if I have it in me to start over. Right. Like to start over and push into a relationship that's new, like gaining trust in someone. And that is, I love manage expectations. Like go in, I think it's like maybe, would you say go in with low expectations? No expectations?
Realistically, I would say maybe manage expectations. I guess the best way that I could sort of extrapolate from that would be to be aware of your existing expectations. That, if I walk into, let's say I walk into a Mexican restaurant, I have certain expectations of what my experience is going to be like that's informed by my previous expectations, right?
Yes.
If I walk into a place that I'm expecting something and it's not there, if I walk into a place that's, Casa de whatever, and it's a Mexican theme, everything, and all they serve in there is raw fish, I'm going to be surprised.
Yeah.
You have to.
It's not going to be the experience you want.
Right. And when you go in with expectations, very often, this is one of the blind spots we have, one of the cognitive blind spots that people have, is we have unknown expectations, unspoken expectations, unknown expectations. They're just intuitive. We expect that there's going to be certain things when we enter into a certain space, right? If I go to a bowling alley, I'm not expecting to see that it's going to be filled with a live rock show. This is a bowling alley. I should
Sometimes
see some
there
bowling,
could be.
right? But when we don't notice that there's expectations there, we find ourselves disappointed, frustrated, angry, whatever.
Yes.
And we don't know why. And it's because there was an unmet expectation that we weren't aware was there.
So Sterling, my question for you is, how do you go in without, I got 44 years of, number one, I've got 44 years of maybe a little dysfunction, maybe some, I've just got 44 years of a relationship that I'm coming into a new relationship with. So you being someone who's gone through loss of a marriage, how was that? Like, how did you go in to a new relationship?
I think so.
Was it super easy at the beginning, or was it challenging?
It was challenging. It felt, I felt a lot of those things of, this isn't okay. It's not okay for me to be, for me to be investing myself into these new experiences. It's not okay for me to be willing to engage in these kinds of conversations or these kinds of intimate moments with
and
people
even and trust.
Right, to trust somebody with some of these things. I did find it was harder for me to open up about certain things than I had expected, and that was one of those things that takes time because I didn't go into it feeling. I mean, going through a divorce is different than losing a partner that you are still committed to. So for me, it was a little bit different, but definitely
totally different.
When I went into it, trying to figure out where do I go, what do I do, how do I behave, my first instinct, and I don't think it was terribly out of line, was to go, what was it like when I first met my
ex? I know, but it's
how did I behave, how did I operate? And now for me, I was a teenager when my ex and I met, so there was a bit of that I had to sort of take with a grain of salt, but recognizing, and I think this is just a conscious moment of self-reflection, and I think it's something that's really important to take a minute and just sit down and think, what was my partner like that I've lost, that I built into that point over the time we spent together? What part of my relationship was due to the experiences we shared? What part of it was innate in that person? What part of it was, what was I attracted